You're listening to Channel Kindness Radio.
Hello and welcome to Channel Kindness Radio. My name is Joe. My pronouns are he, him, his, and I'm a member of Born This Way Foundation's advisory board. I am super excited to be joined by my fellow advisory board member, Salsa. Salsa, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, hello, everyone. My name is Salsa. My pronouns are she, her, hers. And it is so amazing to be here today.
This episode of Channel Kindness Radio is part of a series of interviews between members of Born This Way Foundation's advisory board. In our conversation today, which is going to be amazing, we're going to talk about the healing powers of writing and storytelling. And I know Salsa and I are both big on both writing and storytelling. Salsa, I'd love for you to start us off by telling me a bit about what you got you interested in writing, where this passion came from. What has that journey been like for you?
So this is going to be a long story, and I hope you guys are here for it. So I first wrote my first, fiction, my first stories back in fourth grade. So there was a local publisher who's actively amplifying youth voices, where they give platform for kids around 7 to 12 years old to publish their stories into like novelettes. And me and my friends were so inspired by how kids our age could be a published author. So we were like, oh my God, we should start our own stories and things like that, like kids. So then, we started writing short, silly stories, like maybe like 3 pages long, things like that, like small stories. And but I've never sent my scripts. But then I stopped writing a while back in middle school, I think. I don't know why. I just don't find the sparks, the energy to write that much. So I stopped, not into like a full stop, but more like taking a break. But then I found that spark again back in 10th grade, I think. But then again, I've never published my stories anywhere. Only my friends know or read them and, like giving me feedbacks and things like that. But I've never published it anywhere, and just like occasionally submit it to, for my grades. And then I started publishing my stories online just recently, like 2 or 3 years ago, when I started writing fan fictions for the very first time. And it was for a show called Once Upon a Time. I think you guys know it. And it's literally my comfort series ever. And I realized that I have this gift. I can write. And my friends always gave me good feedbacks. And I feel like maybe I can try something, like channeling my gift to make people feel things, to make people happy, sad, things like that. And then, the rest is history. Now I'm writing fan fictions and uploading it on the online platform. And if anyone is interested, my pseudonym is Regal Rain. And for a personal self-care, writing has helped me so much these past few years. And I realized I struggled with my mental health back when I was 16. And then when I was 18 or 19, I think I finally found the courage to go seek a psychologist to seek professional help. And then she suggested that I should keep a diary, a journal, and put my heart into those papers. And so that is my story about writing. And I think that it's really special, Joe, that we both have such a different experiences in writing and storytelling, from my time writing fan fiction and you hosting a radio show. How did you end up getting into that? And what does writing look like for you?
Thank you, Salsa. I love that. And I love all of your stories about all those different moments of your writing and storytelling journey and how different things sparked at different times. And I've got to applaud you on the fan fiction, because I remember starting out in a very similar way. I think when I was really little, even, having little imaginary friends and playing with different toys and imagine all these detailed scenarios. And when I did start to get into TV shows and films, I really did have these worlds spark in me. And when you fall in love with these characters and settings, you just want to create your own stories. And I know I was a massive fan of Doctor Who, and I have seen Once Upon a Time, and that was great too. And I'm a massive fan of Doctor Who, so I used to make all different kinds of videos and films sparking off of that. Every sort of like Christmas or holiday time, when my family were down, I always wanted to put on these shows. I used to write these scripts and try and get everybody to come and watch the performance, which, looking back on it now, it's so funny. I used to do this whole thing where I told everyone to turn their phones off and be quiet and sit and listen. And we told these stories. And as I got older, I feel like I realized that making these films, it wasn't as easy as that in real life. And it became a thing where it was no longer just imagination and play. I wanted to take it seriously. And I knew that I had friends that were really big at reading. They love reading books. They read so many books. And I didn't have the attention span back then. But then I started writing on the page. I started just by planning stories, and then I started writing them out in full. And as they came to life, I fell in love with reading as well. And as I read more, my writing got better. And it was just the best. It was the best. I was telling these stories, and I feel like these stories were very imaginative. They weren't as grounded as the things I write now are. And as you mentioned, we go through these different stages where something sparks in us again. And I think that's really prominent. And a moment I had, quite a dark moment for me after a breakup. It really hit me hard. It was something that I knew was going to put me in a dark place, and I lost that creativity. I no longer wanted to write. I no longer wanted to express myself in that way. And I just thought, what's the point in telling those stories? What's the point in writing these stories? But then I was speaking to somebody, much like you had this recommendation too. I had the recommendation, the best thing to do is just write how you feel. You like telling stories, now tell the truth. And that was something that felt like quite a difficult concept to master. You love telling these stories, you love these characters, and then you've got to write as you, and you think, this is me now, I've got to confront that. But I know once I got started, I couldn't stop, because everything came out of me that needed to. And as I was writing these stories, I was telling the truth. I was working through everything that had happened. I started writing poetry on the same pages, and then they turned to stories in themselves. And it really regained my creativity and my self-dependence. And since then, I just haven't stopped. And it's been something that's really special. And I think that stream of consciousness writing and storytelling writing helps you work through situations, fictional or in reality, and they can be really, really helpful. And I think it's so interesting that, to me, the two of us, as well as so many other writers around the world, we use storytelling as both a creative outlet and a personal healing practice. I'm so curious, Salsa, what do you think about the stories we create? Do you think the characters might reflect what we're feeling, or are they differently influenced at times from external sources?
Well, for starter, I'm so proud of stories that I made. Like, they're my babies. I love them so much. And but sometimes, we're our biggest enemies, and we tend to criticize ourselves the most. So we're like, oh, I shouldn't be writing this like that. I shouldn't be writing this like that. But I'm so proud of it. All of them. Even my first stories that is so bad, like my first writing, I'm so ashamed for reading my first stories, but yeah, I'm proud and I love them so much. And of course, I think that the characters, the stories that we create, it all reflected on what we're feeling, or what like they're differently influenced. And I think that depends. And I know that I mostly write fan fictions, which means that the characters are my own, and I couldn't really alter too much of their personality, their upbringing, their background story, etc. But I can, and I usually try to be in their shoes. Like when I'm trying to get into their head, trying to think the way they think. So when I was trying to, maybe, like, let's say I'm writing a first where they had to go through some kind of loss, like maybe a loved one dies or things like that, like I try to be in their shoes. Like I've watched this show so many times. I think that I know what it's like to be them. So when this character goes through something, I'd like to think, what will she be reacting? What would she say? What would she do? Things like that. So I try to do that to create a sense that this character are real and relatable. And I know that people think writing fan fictions is like, it's like an easy, like such an easy work. Like you don't have to do much. Like you just have to write plot and things like, like just like you don't have to do much because it's not your original character. But it isn't like, because it's not your original character. You have to think the way that you think the writer created them. So it's kind of hard. It's kind of challenging. And I know for sure that sometimes I write things that I felt, I seen, I experienced for those characters. But often I also wrote scenarios that I never had before. So it's like differently influenced. Like, for example, I once wrote a verse where they were like living in this medieval era, and I heard and I had to learn how the society was back then. Like, how would someone do this? What would someone be eating? What would someone be doing? What would someone use transportation? Like, so I have to do like intensive. Yeah, I'm not saying that it's a professional, what's called it, like a professional research, more like a personal research, but I did my research. So I just try to make my stories as accurate as it can be, and just like do extensive research whenever it involves some heavy details like that. And I personally think that I see writing as a process, as a way to escape our reality, if I had to word it that way. And besides writing my pain and my experiences in the fictional art, like I told you, I write whatever I feel wherever and whenever I could, as a what's called it, a self-care process program. And it's like, I don't know, it's been so wonderful, and it's been an amazing journey. And I know it wasn't easy to start. Like, when I first started this journey, this writing journey, like pouring my heart into these papers, like keeping a diary, for example, I have this feeling like, where do I start? How do I start? And what should I write? I was just unsure, and there are a lot of feelings like, should I really do this? Will this help? Wouldn't it be awkward, like me writing into these papers, like, dear diary, and a lot of certainty like that. But then I feel like I just need to write whatever I feel. I just need to try to get all these emotions out, and like, just like getting all the thoughts and these feelings out. And thanks to my therapist, by the way, like I wouldn't be the person I am today, like sharing, like openly sharing this journey with you guys without her. So kudos to her. And my therapist said that I'm not good at handling my own emotions. I'm really bad at it. Like, I tend to dwell on my feelings for days. So she suggested a lot of things, but writing has been my choice. And it really has helped me to regulate my emotions and help me not to dwell on my feelings too much. And like, I just like, I need to feel this. I need to feel this right now and pour it all out and like cry, scream, whatever at this moment. But when I already finished with my emotions, like pouring it out, it should be like a blank page, like a new start for me. Like I have to let it all go because I had poured it all out on these papers. And I know that writing has helped us both to get through hard times. Like we don't bottle up these emotions too much. And a little, if I can give a little advice for everyone hearing this and they wanted to start their own journey in self-healing through writing, it doesn't have to be a page long. It doesn't have to be like, put beautiful words into it. You don't have to. It could just be words or a few sentences, a paragraphs, or even scribbles of words thrown across the pages. Like, just if you're mad and you're like writing mad, angry, upset in those papers, that is fine. And the goal is just to let it all out, to get those burden on your shoulder, on your chest out. And I've been doing that for like, I don't know, probably 7 years. I don't know. I'm bad at math. But anyway, and I think that this writing has been a habit. And sometimes I still forget to review and take notes of my day, usually when it's like a good day. So I'm just way too happy and I don't feel like, I don't really need to write. So yeah, sometimes I forgot. But if you forgot, you shouldn't be ashamed and you shouldn't be blaming yourself for not doing it every day. Nobody forces you to write that, right? And even if only you write it on your hard day, on your rough days, that is still something, I guess. So, Joe, I've shared my personal writing experiences that helped me with my emotions, how to regulate it, and how to not dwell too much on it. And I'd love to learn more about your practices. In what ways has writing for healing manifested in your own life, Joe?
Thank you so much, Salsa. And I love hearing about all the different ways you used it to practice self-care. And I think it's really important how you said, don't be angry at yourself when you don't do it. You don't have to do it every day and you can start small and build up. And I think that's advice I need to take myself, because as someone who's so passionate about writing, sometimes that turns into a lot of confusion within myself where I want to write, but all these things come up and then one day I don't write. And then I notice myself thinking, I wish I'd done that. I wish I'd written yesterday. I really want to tell this story. And sometimes it doesn't happen. And at the moment, I really am challenging myself to write morning pages every day. You might have heard of them. You might not have. They're from Julia Cameron's The Artist's Way. And the purpose behind them is in the morning when you wake up, you open up a notebook, a journal, or a Word document, and you write down 3 pages of your thoughts, your feelings, anything on your mind, complete stream of consciousness. And this is a really difficult task once you get going. And once you do the first page, it does become easy to do page 2 and 3. But as you do go along, you are thinking, how am I going to get to the end of that 3rd page? How? It's just so difficult. I don't have these much things on my mind. And what I realized happens is once you get past all of the little things, you might even write your shopping list. You might write what you want to have for lunch or for dinner, the different things you've got to do in your day. But eventually you go so much deeper and start to think about your thoughts and actions and feelings and what you actually want, those actual intentions. And I know one way my life has significantly changed within the past year or so is by being aware of my intentions through writing out what I actually want, who I think I am. I've stopped doing so much of the things that weren't very positive for me that I was doing because I wasn't thinking about them. I wasn't thinking about decisions I made with that perspective. But writing in the mornings of what I actually want has meant that I am so much more focused during the day. And I've been very ambitiously setting an alarm lately so I can do the whole morning page thing. I can have an early night. I can sit and have some writing time. But let's face it, as Salsa says, we need to not be too harsh on ourselves. And that doesn't happen most of the time. But what I'm finding myself writing in my morning pages is don't be so hard on yourself. You'll do it. And when you do it, it will all be good. And the other night, I'm working on a novel and I'm near the end of it, and I've been dragging out this end process for ages, and I think part of me just doesn't want to let the story go. But I'm really in this stage now where I'm excited about it. And I know that when I was originally going through that healing period after that breakup, I was experimenting with different forms, poetry, and then I started songwriting and working with different artists to tell these stories, and I fell in love with music. But what I realized with those forms and shorter forms such as short stories, and when I've done fan fiction and things like that, I love sharing those and I love seeing people's reaction. I love making people feel things. But when I've been working on a novel for so long, I'm realizing that this stuff is only for me, and there's not an audience there reacting. And if I do radio, if I do presenting, there'd be people there listening or watching, and they can give me instant feedback. But writing a novel, when you're left with your own feedback, it can be really difficult. And you just become really harsh on yourself, really self-critical. You lose that self-belief. But writing ultimately is a powerful tool, and it does connect us. And writing and kindness, storytelling and kindness are intrinsically linked. They're very important. And I don't think art is therapy, but art definitely is therapeutic. It definitely has the power to help us. And as your therapist said, and advisors in my life have said, writing is such an important tool, whether we're talking about fiction or non-fiction. And as I'm near the end of that novel, I shared a line from something I'd just written online. And the response I had just really lifted me up, because people were connecting, people were enjoying it, and that made me so happy. And I'm sure, Celsi, you get that once you share fan fiction. When anyone says something nice, it just makes you feel good. First of all, it makes you feel like, I can do something. I feel worth, I feel value, I feel like I've got talent, I feel like people see me, and being seen feels so good. But then it goes deeper, and you realize that person's actually connected with your thoughts and feelings and your story. And it shows us how similar we are, how we're all connected, and how that through those connections, we can build a kinder and braver world, because we all think and feel and desire similar things in life. We're all scared of things. We all love things. And these things guide our lives. And watching these stories help us to realize the ways we can do that, and the way that we're all different characters inside this world. And if we do work together, we can achieve the best results. And I just love that. It's so difficult to have that discipline though. But as Salsa says, I would start writing, whether it's fiction or non-fiction. If you want to write a diary, I think that's great. And I know sometimes that can be just as difficult, but I think fan fiction is an amazing place to start. Another thing I'd suggest is pulling up a photo of images online, or a photo of you and loved ones, or a photo of a place you love, or paintings. I love doing it with paintings, and then just sitting writing and describing what I see and coming up with stories based on that. I like to take paintings and imagine that character, what that person is thinking, and what kind of person they look like they are, how they're going to interact, what are their hopes, what are their dreams. And really in there, I feel like I'm bringing out so much and understanding so much about us as people. And so when I do go out into the world, I feel like I've got this extra superpower of understanding, when really that if we do look around us, we can see anyway. But writing is a tool, and stories are a tool that really help us to see the world around us in such a powerful and new way. And so before we end, Salsa, I'd love for each of us to share one thing we're grateful for, to end on a note of gratitude and mindfulness, because this has been such a rich conversation full of inspiration. I hope you sit and write something, and I hope you look at storytelling in a new perspective. But I can go first. Something I'm very, very grateful for is having people around me that have told me that they will stand by what I do. And I feel like that's something that I feel so grateful for, because I know that's not the same for everyone. And what I do see in people around me is that they don't understand what I do, but because of the love and kindness they're showing me a lot of the time, is they're saying, even though we don't understand what you're doing, we don't understand you wanting to pursue writing or creative careers, because that's not who they are, but they give me the kindness to say, we're going to support you anyway, and we want you to try it. We want you to know that if it doesn't work, we want you to have lots of plan Bs, but we want you to try, and we want you to try the best you can to make it work. So I'm so grateful for that kindness. Salsa, what's one thing you're grateful for?
Well, there's a lot of things that I can be grateful for. And it's kind of hard question, because I couldn't pin it into one answer. So since we're talking about writing, I'm so grateful for from my readers, of course. Like, I love getting feedback from them. Like, even when I wrote mean things, like killing these characters and things like that, they will still be giving me good feedbacks and like, oh, I want to read more from you. You break me, but I love it. Like those little words, it's just like, it makes my heart burst with love, with all the, I don't know, I'm so grateful for them. And I'm grateful for my friend, Sophia, because she has been my beta reader for so long. So, that English isn't my first language, isn't my mother tongue. So I'm not saying it's hard, but, I tend to have this grammatical error here and there. And I'm really grateful for her, because she's willingly like, hey, I can be your beta reader. Do you want me to beta your work? And so I'm really grateful for you, Sophia. If you're hearing this, I love you so much. And I hope we could meet one day. And I would also thank you for sharing all the stories. And I know sometimes it is hard to write, especially when it's your original character, I understand the struggle. And before I end this conversation, I just want to share advice that my favorite authors gave me, like personally gave me. Like, so the first one is that she said something like, write for yourself, be happy with your own writing. And if somebody loves it, if somebody likes it, consider it as a bonus. Because in the first place, like, you're writing for yourself. So you should be happy, you should be proud, you should be excited for your own writing, because you do it for you, not for your reader. And the other advice, we writers tend to have this writer's block, like when we don't know where to start, or we don't know how the chapter should go, or like, how should we end this chapter? So another favorite author of mine personally say to me that, write a little, a day or a week, like maybe just like 10 paragraphs long, maximum, like 10 paragraphs long, and then leave it for a week or two, and then come back. And then, read that, like, do a little, like a little criticize for yourself, like you criticizing your own writing, but don't be too harsh. And then like, see where this writing would go, and then repeat the cycle. So like, write a week, 10 paragraphs long, leave it for a week or two, and then come back. And I think that kind of helped me, because I know how hard that writer block can be. So Joe, this has been such a wonderful conversation. It's so good. And I'm so glad that we got to share some of our stories and learn from each other.
Thank you so much, Salsa.
And to all of our listeners, thank you for tuning in. For more stories about kindness and bravery, go to channelkindness.org and follow us on social media at Channel Kindness.
You're listening to Channel Kindness Radio.